What's amazing about B2B sales and marketing is how the more things change, the more they stay the same. And Glenn and I are going to talk about the underlying principles that anchor all of this. So if you've got an agency, if you've got a tech company, a software company, a specialization in geospatial data consulting, it doesn't matter what you're selling. B2B is B2B. So we're talking really specifically about B2B services and software in the marketplace that's maybe difficult to sell. Lead generation, sales, building pipelines, converting, closing business, scaling. You look at your business. So is the business serving you, or is it grinding you into the ground? And there's really two principles for us, which is get what you want from the business. I wanted a lifestyle business. Glenn wanted a lifestyle business. It turned into a passive income business for me. It's not quite a passive income business for him yet, but it's on the radar to get to that, or an exit. So we're going to talk about how we did it and the underlying principles and the struggles.
Thank you for having me, Larry. I'm good to be here.
Let's go back to the beginning. So when we met on a Flex Jobs company called Remote Co. And Glenn had already created the lifestyle he wanted. And I had really one kind of interview question, and we've met in person once, and he's been running a business. Now he has 50% equity earn-in kind of equity, based on one question, which is basically, what do you want? And he said, well, I want to go surfing in the morning, and I want to hang out with my family. And what I interpreted was, I don't want to work for assholes. I want to control my life, and I don't want you telling me what to do. And I was like, done. And that was just basically a sales job. And you started bringing in business right away with a strategy you came up with of UK market entry into the US. And all of a sudden the business is coming in. And I'm like, oh, okay. Where do we take this?
Yeah, Larry, I found you. I was in the process of shutting down a prior company that I had started. I had some tech out in the tourist zones of where I lived, and the tech had pretty much run its course. In the process of winding that down and trying to figure out what do I do next, and really not knowing what, but I knew that I didn't want to change my values. And part of my values was lifestyle, was family, was what's important. I spent a good part of my life living in New York City, doing the grind, being a hamster on the wheel, always trying to keep ahead. And around 2008, 2009, I moved to Spain, and I had a massive rethink about what I really want in life and what's important. And it wasn't, the newest BMW. And it wasn't, sending my kids to a school that I could brag about. It was having my kids around me. It was going surfing in the morning. It was having lunch with my family, but I wasn't ready to stop working. And that's when I stumbled across one of Larry's ads, and he and I got together. We started talking, and I knew sales. I've been doing it my whole life. I've been in finance. I've been in tech startup. I knew sales. And Larry had a great company that was looking to help, entrepreneurs and small business owners expand their sales. And Larry and I get together and put both of our decades of experience to work for small companies. And it's been great. Larry's been able to move on to new things. I'm able to have the lifestyle I want, but still achieve for our clients and achieve for myself. So it's been great.
And the funny thing about the how do you get a passive income, how to build a lifestyle company crowd is the teaching is how to do it. And that's not how we did it. So we did it successfully, but we did it through doing it based on our own experience of what we wanted, not through figuring out how to do it. We never had a how-to system. Our how-to system was be in the marketplace and figure out what would work.
Yeah. And look, the truth is there's only one type of passive income, and that's stocks. You buy stocks, but it's risk like everything. Everything in life has risk. The other side of passive income is you build something, and you don't build anything without work. But you need to put the priorities on what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and what is the best path forward to get there. Some of it you can do yourself. Some of it you outsource to other people. But it's maintaining your values and doing things that you have found through trial and error, through work, that works. And then when you find something that works, you double down and you push harder. And I work, I work every day, but I don't work 20-hour days. I work 8-hour days. I go for a swim every morning. I have dinner with my family. You gotta maintain your values, but the path to passive income isn't without work. It's not a gimmick. It's doing things that work, but maintaining your values and your lifestyle while you do it.
Let's get tactical and practical for some people. One of the things that I learned, it was back in the 90s, was the idea of hyper personalization in marketing. So I was meeting with Experian, I was selling marketing communications, and I was learning how databases work and how market intelligence works. Now, lo and behold, and then I'm selling AI, marketing AI in the 2000s, and lo and behold, now we have CPG chat and everybody automating their lead generation and marketing approaches with these bots. And I'm like, oh my God, I learned this stuff back in the 90s. And so we've been doing hyper personalization experiments for years before the AI was even like mainstreamed. And let's talk about that a little bit because everyone's trying to do this now.
So there are two areas where hyper personalization works, and that is B2C, which I don't do, and that's based on your navigation habits, and that's the large telecoms and all that, seeing what you're doing and selling that data.
So let me just put a time so people understand this. That's called an ad network. What is an ad network? Facebook, Google, all of those systems are massive ad networks, meaning they're designed for an advertiser to hyper-personalize content using data provided by the user, free content provided by the influencers, to serve up a marketing product, which is either based on impressions or conversions or some sort of metric. These are very sophisticated, high-quality systems now sped up through AI to make it work even better. We're not talking about that because you need an army of data scientists, technologists. So I'm just telling people right here, if somebody's trying to teach you to become a marketer because you're a coach and they're teaching you AI, you know how much money Facebook and Google and all these people, I was there as these things were being built, working in these companies, not those companies, but I was selling this stuff out in the market. It's really hard to figure out.
Yeah. And frankly, that doesn't work in B2B. If you're selling a fairly complex product, software, service, and you're looking to talk to C-suite, director level people, they're not going to do the actions you want them to do to tell you that now is the right time to talk to them. There's all sorts of stuff out in the market about intent data and this and that. We've tried it all. We've given up on pretty much all of it.
All of it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's all intent data tells you really is that someone in this organization, someone in this, 5 to 20,000 employee organization was on certain websites at certain times. You don't know who, you don't know why, you don't know if they're really shopping. You just know that someone was there. And there's any number of reasons people could be there.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Where personalization can really come into effect, we found a couple places it works. One is if you have a really event-driven offer. Your time to coach someone, you've learned, is when they're in the midst of an organization or when they're looking to downscale their company, or maybe you offer consulting services and the best time is when someone's expanding out their factory. Then certain data about, and some of this is really being on top of news releases and press releases of companies, looking at scoops in some of the data aggregators like ZoomInfo, then that type of data can be really useful. Or when someone's already in your pipeline and you're already talking to them and you already understand what they're doing, at that point, being on top of certain actions of theirs could be very useful. But when you're doing cold outreach to build a pipeline in a B2B world, we haven't found hyper personalization or any sort of market intelligence to be super useful, to be honest with you.
And I'll give an example of how this works. And the idea of the revenue department to me, which I kind of noticed back in the late 2000s, was where things were going, and wrote a book about this in 2019 called No Way Back, Revenue Department Concept. And then Glenn's really successfully honed and executed and refined that concept. So it's done. It's a revenue department, not a sales department. It's a little different notion. And I got into Allstate for a company called Networked Insights that sold social data analytics. So Networked Insights was, they worked for Samsung and helped Samsung compete against Apple. So I was working there for 6 months, but I'm not good working in companies. So I ended up getting fired, of course, which led towards starting Call Sales Partners. So I learned a lot. So I got into Allstate. How did I do it? It was hyper personalization based on what Glenn said, but it was me. It wasn't a bot. So what happened is I noticed the money's going to the CMO. There's your event trigger. So the CIO is losing the budget because of marketing analytics, marketing data. All these huge corporations were trying to figure out, how do we take advantage of this, because they realize what's coming. I had social data analytics as a product, so an insurance company could figure out what's going on with my consumer. They can build products based on that knowledge. It was very important to them. They were spending a ton of money. There's the event. So what happened is I started cold outreach into Allstate. And I knew who I wanted. I wanted the head of the data analytics department. In other words, it's called consumer intelligence. And I noticed Allstate's hitting, we were using a system called Marketo at Networked Insights. And I was looking at the website hits, the domain, allstate.com. I'm like, aha, they're hitting it. Now I'm massively calling like a maniac, and I get a meeting with the director of marketing and consumer data, and I got a $25,000 pilot deal within that group because I went under the purchasing thresholds. So there's a sales intelligence going on, integrated with marketing intelligence, integrated with lead gen. We built that as a big system, so it wasn't just me doing it, with Call Sales Partners.
But you hit on something, Larry, there that's key, and that's where market intelligence really comes in. We don't use that much market intelligence at the beginning of outreach. It's once it's begun. I mean, we'll use market intelligence to figure out, okay, what are the types of companies we want to go after? What are the titles? What are the individuals? What are the personas? And we'll put together our messaging based on that. And anyone out there who's trying their luck with some cold emails and everything, 3 to 5 sentences max. Just a little tip from someone who sent out a lot of emails.
A lot.
Do not build a thesis statement. Do not tell them how long you've been in business or what your background is. 3 to 5 sentences. 3 is better than 5, by the way, on a specific pain point they have and why you could help it. Hey, are you having this issue? Here's what we've done for someone else. Do you want to talk? Okay, that's it. Send that out. And then what you're looking for is things like opens and where you want to focus your time. If they clicked on a link that you sent them. And we do that. Every one of my salespeople will see if someone has opened their email 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and they call that person, and they call that person, and they call that person. That's active market intelligence. You have a reason to believe that that person has expressed interest. And even going back to the hyper-personalization, we tried it. We hired multiple people. We built spreadsheets with ABC.
I remember.
We put a whole thing together where if they're this position, we're pulling information out of people's LinkedIn. We had this whole thing together to do hyper-personalized emails. And after about 5 months of doing it and spending a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, we found that our open rates and our reply rates were statistically the same as our generic emails. Made no difference in what we were doing.
So let me speak to that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sure. No, please.
The difference is discernment as a company owner, or if you're doing business development, if you're a business developer or entrepreneur, between business development and sales. So business development means you're creative in the marketplace, trying to identify what's going on because something new is emerging. That's totally different from when you're in a marketplace where the situations and the budgets and the purchase patterns and the intent is kind of baked. So what Glenn's talking about is a market where you kind of know who you are, you know why you're there, you know what they're doing, you know what they're thinking. This hyper-personalization stuff at the top, what people call top of the funnel, in other words, how do I get people on a list to respond and give my sales organization meetings, is not necessary at all. And we've proven that statistically. But it could be in situations where it's a business development thought, which is what I do personally. I'm a terrible salesperson and I'm great at business development. Business development means you're trying to figure out what the hell's coming next. That's the Allstate example. My approach did not work, which is one of the reasons why I don't work in the company anymore. It actually messed things up because I'm being too creative in an environment where we'd already figured out what worked. So I'm tweaking and changing stuff that didn't need to be tweaked and changed.
And you're very right about that, Larry. There are two very different markets. There's I want to call it a more mature market where you're selling into a market of products and ideas that already exist. You're going in and everyone has some sort of solution. It might not be a good solution. That might be an old solution, might be a terrible solution. You're going in there looking to replace, or you're looking to gain new traction on someone that might not have a solution, but they know these solutions are out there and they want to move in that direction. That's very different than when you're going into a market and you're trying to tell people, think of what's possible. We can take you to a different place. You're here, but we want to take you here, and you never even knew that you can get here, and we're going to talk about how to do that. And that's business development, and that's very different than sales.
It's not only different, but if you don't figure this out, you're in for a world of hurt. If you're an entrepreneur and you're doing something new, the way you go into the market, I call it More Money Now, and I run a daily meeting on this. And if you want to know more about it, just go to the content page, click down, scroll down to More Money Now, and you can see videos on how to do it in self-service and figure it out yourself. Entrepreneurs in a structure and a system in a market that's already matured are absolutely pushing away revenue all the time. Sorry about the dogs, folks. This is the work at home thing. It's a mixed bag. So what happened with me was the clients were like, let's do a pipeline update. And I'm coming in with all these new ideas. And they're like, I don't want any new ideas. And it's because they weren't entrepreneurs. They're what's called service providers. So what they wanted was to deliver service to high quality clients. And they wanted to know how many high quality clients are coming in this year and over the next 3 months because they want cash. And that makes me a bad fit for a service provider business. And I had to realize that in September 2020 and then turn the reins over to Glenn, who likes figuring that out when I don't. I want to go and innovate and be in the cutting edge of what's next. Know yourself, in other words. Know yourself. If you're an entrepreneur, act like one. Do business development. If you're a service provider and you're just a technologist or a consultant or an expert of any kind, and you just want to make more money and do a good job, get a sales organization process in place. And it's totally different in terms of what you're going to build.
And it is very different to sell the better. I've got a better solution, a better product, a better way of doing things. Selling the better is very different than selling the unknown. I'll bet you didn't even know you could do this. But at the end of the day, both of them, you require really understanding who you're talking to, what is the best way to get in front of them, and being ridiculously persistent with it.
Ridiculously persistent. I remember years ago, we were looking at the data and people say things based on beliefs that are just plain not true because they heard it somewhere because some consultant said it or a coach or whatever. So this thing about, well, it takes 7 sales touches to be known, liked, and trust. And I'm like, that's totally wrong. And we looked at our pipeline and we're trying to figure out what is our company good at and where should it focus? And Glenn really did that. And one of the things I noticed was looking at the data, it was like, anybody who closed, whether it was for us or a business for our client that closed, we were looking at numbers like 100, 200, 300, 400 touches. 400. Yeah. Think about that. Well, how do you do that? Operations and integration and efficiency and really understanding what it takes to get people in a complex situation to make buying decisions because they're their own worst enemies and they kind of know it, frankly.
Yeah. If I look back at my sales career, one of the hardest lessons to learn was this idea I got ingrained in me that not to bother someone too much, which is the worst lesson you can have as a salesperson. I can go back and look at my career and I could think of these great opportunities I had when someone said, hey, I've got too much going on right now. I really want to do this. call me back at 6 months. And I would put in my calendar 6 months later to call that person back. And probably 50, 60% of the time, I'd call them back in 6 months and go, oh, I already solved the problem with somebody else. Thanks for staying on top of it, though.
And what I love about OpGen, so our company's called Call Sales Partners. We rebranded it when I get my name off the door to OpGen. And what I realized why the company is successful and why it's got a niche, and it's because of being the one that did get the business, because it wouldn't go away. So the key to it is your intent of what you're doing, because if you're a corporate manager, you want somebody to be there when you're ready, but you don't want somebody to be annoying you because they want an update from you about what's going on in the, in the project cycle. They just want to know, oh, they're still there. Oh, they're still there. Oh, they're still there. And I'm trying to think of some examples where, I closed business because I was the last one standing sometimes where all of a sudden they call up and they're like, we're ready.
I could think of 100 examples when the reason we got the deal is because we were always there. And it's not always like, hey, are you ready? Hey, are you ready? Sometimes it is, hey, it's been about a month and a half. I just stumbled across this great article I want to share with you. I think you'll find it interesting. Let me know if you need anything else. I have lost more deals than I care to admit in my life for poor follow-up. I've never in my life lost a deal because someone said, you were just too persistent and helpful.
Right. Too persistent and helpful. So let's talk about content marketing and content, because we've created a piece of content called the 5 sales traps, or the 5 revenue traps. And I wrote that with Nate, who was our writer years ago before Glenn even got involved in the company, I think. And you're still using it. And one of the things you did is you said, one of the sales traps is hiring crappy lead generation service. And now I think you changed it to crappy AI lead generation service, and the rest of it's still the same.
Yeah, because it all holds true. I mean, it's been, I don't know how many years ago you put that together, probably 10 years ago or more, yeah. And it still holds true. I mean, some of them are hiring one person and thinking they could do it all. If they can't, hiring someone because they got a great Rolodex. Even just the term Rolodex tells you when you thought it up. And we always laugh. The problem with the Rolodex is the letter Z. That's, within 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to get through it. And then where do you go from there? So, and the one thing we have now is it's amazing how many companies out there are pitching AI sales, push a button, sit back and let the leads roll in.
Yeah.
Who in this audience likes getting spammed by a robot?
It's high quality spam though, Glenn.
Exactly. I'm probably dating myself, but I still get mad to this date when I have a problem and I can't get a human on the phone, and I spend 40 minutes going through chat bots and answer bots. It's no different when it's trying to sell you. It has no clue what you really care about, what you want, and God forbid you have a question. It's not there to help you.
And the point is not good or bad AI. So people are arguing. I remember this years ago, people would say, so there's 2 conferences, the outbound conference and the inbound conference. So the outbound people are arguing with the inbound people saying, no, outbound's important, outbound's important. And the inbound people are saying, outbound's dead, outbound's dead. Why? Because it's what they're selling. So in other words, use tools. This is what we call revenue department thinking. Yeah. So use the tools that will work given your situation. That's the one thing I would tell everybody here is ignore all of these consultants and coaches that are saying things like that. And the reason they're saying it is because that's the hammer they're selling.
Larry, I'll give your audience a great tip on one of the ways we use AI that really works. And the problem is people think AI can do it for you. It can't. It can help you do things quicker. That's the way to think about it. So we don't use AI to generate unique content, because what it will do is generate very boring, crappy, ununique content.
Right.
Here's what we've done. If we want to create an article for one of our clients, we'll get one of their engineers on a Zoom call. We'll interview that engineer. We'll ask them technical questions. We'll ask them about how certain things are done. We'll really dig deep and spend 45 minutes to an hour talking to this engineer. We'll then take the transcription of that, feed it into ChatGPT, and ask it to turn into an article.
There you go.
We'll revise it and fix it. And now we've created this great top-level argument off of a 45-minute conversation with a human who's really intelligent and knows what he's doing.
So years ago, I had a writer on staff on a 4 or 5 grand a month retainer part-time to do that for clients and for me. And that led to a book that I published in 2019 that's cringy to me now. When I read it back, I'm like, oh my God. But it was pretty good at the time, I think, in some ways. And it was real. It was what I believed and what we were trying. And some was working and some wasn't. But what you just said is so important. And it's like, it's not that I didn't need the writer. You don't need the writer today. What you need is someone who can think about the content. And who is better? You want to sell B2B? Let your prospects have access to an expert, but don't ask that expert to do anything except show up for the call.
Yes, yes. Their job is to be an expert and nothing else. Their job is to talk solution and nothing else. The minute you give them more to do, engineers are not salespeople, and salespeople are not engineers.
I was on so many calls with sales engineers when I was selling software, where the sales engineer and me as the salesperson were talking past each other constantly. And the sales engineer was so frustrated that they were on the call because they were trying to scope out an opportunity, and they don't think like that. And I was frustrated because they kept wanting to show all the cool stuff in the innovative marketing AI software. And I got to the point where I stopped inviting them, but it took becoming an expert in the market thinking. So I became an expert in the market perspective and thinking. The sales engineer was an expert in the technology. I had to become an expert in the application of the technology, knowing when to bring the expert in and when not to, because at a certain point, if you're selling complex B2B, that salesperson is not going to close it. You've got to have an expert on the phone with the salesperson, making sure it closes by running it down, because a technology person isn't going to do that. So it becomes, in other words, a team effort, but everybody's got to play their part in an orchestrated way.
100%. 100%. I like to tell people that this idea of a sales closer is a very 1980s, 1990s Glenn Ross concept that doesn't hold true to complex B2B sales.
No.
Selling in a B2B environment is a team sport. It takes an expert, it takes a salesperson, and it takes the people to back them up to make sure that everything they're doing moves forward. And what eventually sells the deal is the salesperson managing the process and making sure everything is happening and the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and the right people are involved and the objections are done and the people who can say no are dealt with. And then it takes the engineer to let them know and understand that you can deliver and what that delivery looks like and how it will solve their problem. And they're two very different things.
That's so critical. And you know what happens at the end of these sales cycles? The company people say, thank you. Thank you for helping me buy this complex thing, because you just made my job better. You gave me some retention. You helped me figure out how to change something in my company that I could not figure out how to change, because you helped me pull all these things together. Thank you. Instead of, oh, why'd you call me too much or whatever. So you construct your entire company around not giving the market what it wants at all. You construct your entire company around integrating your product inside the market through really doing that in the market, because every nuanced market and individual sales cycle in the market is a bit different. So some brain has to be involved. So Glenn has a team. So he's got him thinking about it at one level. He's got an AE, which is called a salesperson, closer kind of person traditionally, thinking about another level. And he's got a business developer who thinks about it at a totally different level. Absolutely. So we only got another minute, and then I'm going to stay on, folks, for another few minutes. But what I want to leave you with is, here's my sales pitch. I'll give you something that's useful. So if you go to redpillpathway.com/events, claim your guest pass. We got all kinds of stuff going on the Entrepreneur Experience Video Metaverse Campus. Hang out with us. That's it. I'm not asking you to buy anything, because I don't even know if I want you to. So Glenn, what are you up to today, and what are you looking to say to people in terms of what you have to offer?
Yeah, today I'm I'm working for my clients, but also working for myself. I'm helping them succeed. I'm helping them grow. And to be honest with you, I'm going to go surfing in about 2 hours. But after that, I'm going to be sitting right back at my desk, and I'm going to be working to help my clients grow their companies and grow their revenue, and feel like they have the support that they could focus on their company and not worry about their sales. That's what we do.
We're helping B2B owners have a lifestyle company.
Yeah. Anyone wants to learn about us, just go to opgen.io. You can check out our company there, and feel free to send a message. It's glenn@opgen.net or opgen.io. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Glenn.
Bye-bye.
All right. I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the things we talked about, and put it in a little bit more context for you. So one of the things that's important to understand with how to figure this out is that the belief systems get in the way because markets are selling things, and usually there's some consulting firm. Sometimes it's a big one like a Deloitte or a Accenture or a McKinsey that has a perspective. So they'll see something in the market, somebody writes a book about it, or they speak at conferences, and that becomes conventional thinking. And it's an original idea when it starts. And then those ideas trickle down into the market, and people adopt them as belief systems and often start companies around them where that's what they're selling. So they're trying to differentiate themselves, which is a positioning industry term, when that approach doesn't work anymore. As misapplied. It works when it's applied based on principles. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but simply what happens is people are constructing a hammer that's unique in their minds, but it's really not, because it's what they're trying to sell. So they've done this not with the marketplace, with adaptation for each situation, but they've done it because it's what they want to sell, based on a perspective of something maybe they learned or they're an expert in, and maybe they went through a marketing exercise with a company and positioned themselves and created brand avatars. And the reason this doesn't work anymore is because the minute anybody does that, everyone else in the marketplace sees it and they start copying, or they create their own hyper-targeted personalization approach of a different kind of hammer. So somebody says, well, I have a ball peen hammer, and somebody else shows up with a different kind of hammer. Or it's like, well, I got a Phillips, and then you're like, well, I got a flathead. And they're fighting over a marketplace that's confused because nobody wants to hear about how that unique hammer works in comparison to any other hammer. So what Glenn and I are talking about is building not a hammer, but a toolkit based on what you wanted to do. So it's, who do you want to be with? What is your expertise? And how does that apply, not only in the marketplace, but in terms of the company you construct around you within the marketplace? So instead of thinking, how do I use a tool, content AI, lead generation, demand generation, content marketing, video, personality stuff, it doesn't make any difference. What matters is understanding, what's my lifestyle design? What is my passive income design? What is my active income design? Am I a service provider, a coach, or an entrepreneur? How do I construct an infrastructure and a series of know, like, and trust experiences, and then products, offers and products, engagement within the marketplace, not figuring out what people will buy, but figuring out what is the relationship between me and them, so we become an us. And this approach is simple. That's the funny thing about it. But what stands in the way and the friction is the beliefs. And the beliefs are the idea of what will work based on what you see working for other people who are maybe, in your perspective, more advanced than you. So I see people like hanging out by the pool and videotaping themselves on social media, and people, it triggers something in the brain of, oh, if I do that, I get to hang around by the pool too. Well, I will guarantee you, if you do what that person did to get that lifestyle by the pool, you're not going to get the lifestyle by the pool that they got in the way they got it, because you're different. So every individual is different. And what matters is understanding the principles underneath all of this effort and struggle and challenge, and how to get opportunities and how to enjoy what you're doing, be in your zone of genius, some call it, or even your zone of competence. Maybe that's where you're at. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Or getting purpose out of it, or making an impact. None of this matters. It matters that you apply it to your own experience. Find the marketplace you want to be in. So Glenn found a marketplace he wants to be in B2B that works. So there's service providers or software companies that don't want to innovate and get into all this complex stuff. That's me. You're like that. You want to talk to me. You don't want to talk to Glenn. If you know already this is what I'm selling, you want to talk to Glenn, because our perspectives are based on who we are. So I always want to be in what's next. Glenn wants to be in what's practical and works. That's why we became a good partnership. And I gave up 50% equity in a business that I bootstrapped. So I didn't have to work in it for 4 years because I wanted to do something else. Now, somebody who is more of a lifestyle person like Glenn, or a service provider like Glenn, would never do that, because they would think, well, I don't want to go through, the pain of running into more burning buildings for 4 years and figuring out something new. For me, that's my happy place. So that gets to, how do you do this? The More Money Now approach that we work on every day in the virtual campus, and then I have videos up for free, so you don't have to come in. It's go redpillpathway.com/content, scroll down to More Money Now, watch the videos, figure it out yourself, or come in for 5 days, and we'll give you some ideas. And then you can go away or stay. It's up to you. That's the whole point. So people are like, well, isn't this your sales funnel? It's like, well, if I had a sales funnel, you'd be closed by now. We know what we're doing. Now I'm being arrogant there, but it is true. I'd be marketing to the mind, and how can I find the pain point? And I don't do that anymore. Glenn does, because I don't want to. That's why I left the company, because I wanted to be in what was next, and be involved in creating something new that hasn't really been done before. And for me, it's what I did. And it's the intersection of inner development, personal development, and that whole world with business development, sales, entrepreneur infrastructures, how to bring that together so each individual, whether you're a coach or a consultant or an entrepreneur, can get what you want in your life. Why do I want that? Because I want things to work better in the society. I want better software. I want better services. I want better restaurants. I want better technology flow and platforms. I want companies to be able to innovate and change in all markets. So I created something else called Change Agent Board to help do that. So it's eminently selfish, based on impact of me thinking, how do I be the change I want to be in the world, create a better world that I get to live in too? So that led to this 4-year experiment, or series of experiments, that continues, because it's always an experiment. Otherwise, I'm stuck and attached to fixed thinking around how this works. And sometimes I do a LinkedIn post and I see the comments on it, and I'm like, you have a fixed mindset about LinkedIn. So some people say, well, LinkedIn is not for cold outreach. I'm like, how do you know? LinkedIn is not for networking and connecting. It's for content authority marketing. Well, how do you know? LinkedIn is for content authority marketing. Well, how do you know? In other words, how do you know what's right for me? So how many LinkedIns are there? There's as many LinkedIns as there are people using it. So it's a matter of understanding the platform. It's understanding the intent behind the platform. So I'll talk about LinkedIn really quick, since we're on here, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. YouTube and LinkedIn are totally different. The intent behind LinkedIn is not an ad network. YouTube's an ad network. So what they're trying to do is get your data, and they're trying to get your content, and they're trying to hyper target, get people in a thought loop so they consume more content, and then they can sell that stickiness of behavior with intent being consistently demonstrated across the ad network of the internet and all these social platforms. That's what YouTube's trying to do. It's owned by Google. Google invented a lot of this stuff. They didn't invent the concept, That was, I think, P&G, Procter and Gamble, kind of really mastered this back in probably the 1960s. But Google took it on steroids online. Now, LinkedIn's totally different. LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft is letting LinkedIn do it differently. So if you listen to Dan Roth or some of the people, the guy who runs Entrepreneur Magazine talks about this. I'm forgetting his name, Jason, I think something. He wrote a good book. But what this is about is community and connection, and LinkedIn's trying to reward that. Their AI is trying to reward it, their algorithms. So give it to them. So if you want to succeed on LinkedIn now, don't do what I did 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I built a 7-figure business. We got to 100 grand a month into the second year, 4 grand a month in the second month using cold outreach on LinkedIn. Now it's different because LinkedIn is not rewarding that. They're going to punish it. So if you're using, I had, I think 3 comments on a LinkedIn post yesterday using AI. I could tell because they ran my post through their AI. And I could see my own language in the comments they made. And then I looked at their profiles and I'm like, I'm an avatar target market client for them. LinkedIn's not going to reward that. What they're rewarding are people who bring communities together. That's how the top voices become top voice. And they're giving little cookies away for good behavior now, but they'll take them away. So I got a top community entrepreneur badge, and then they took it away because I stopped answering the questions their AI creates. I didn't care because I don't need a cookie. I already have them at home. But what I do need is the concept of community, because on LinkedIn, it's all about content that brings community together. So that's what I'm giving them. On YouTube, it's different. I'm not worrying about YouTube because the algorithms are too complex, and I don't want to spend 4 or 5 grand a month, 10 grand a month on a YouTube marketing agency, which is what it takes, hiring like Evan Carmichael or one of these kind of people. That's what people are doing that have money. And they're the ones who are succeeding because these ad networks are incredibly complex right now. Plus, YouTube canceled a channel on me, and I still haven't heard back as to why. I don't know why. It was a year ago almost. So be careful not to build your business on quicksand. And I would include LinkedIn in that too, because Microsoft can close this down or change the algorithm, or they change their perspective. Maybe they turned it into an ad network because they don't make enough money from the community strategy. These corporations will change if it's not working for them financially. The Wall Street pressure, the investor pressure, the private equity pressure drives those corporate decisions. So if you want to own your own life and own your own business, you got to do it on your terms and do it in the way that you want to do it. That's the key to succeeding today in this hyper competitive economy. And it's not to compete in a way, it's to find your own way through based on what works